You add another thing. You call it commitment. Somehow it gets worse. That is the little insult of trying to improve something. The worse it feels, the more serious you look. You tighten the plan. You make the routine cleaner. You give the whole thing a name. Because apparently, a tired human becomes a military operation the second the evening is involved. And then the running shoes sit by the door again, angled slightly outward, like they are also disappointed in how this is going. You know the ritual. You pass them once and think, later. You pass them again and think, after food. Then you bend down, not to put them on, obviously, let's not get dramatic, but to move one lace out of the way, because it is somehow accusing you from the floor. Very small trial. And by the time the day is technically yours, the shoes are still there, the plan has grown 6 new conditions, and the thing you were meant to do has become too large to start. Not because running is complicated, it is not. That is the annoying part. 2 shoes, outside. Body moving. Humanity did manage this before laminated habit systems arrived, wearing expensive confidence. But you add a better route. You add a stricter time. You add a longer version for the days when you feel strong, which is adorable. Because the person making that plan is always a rested little dictator who has never met you at 7:43 in the evening. More. Adams and Converse at the University of Virginia published research in Nature in 2021 showing this exact bias. In 8 experiments, when people were fixing something, they almost always added a piece, even when removing one worked better. They kept adding even when they were told they could take away. The technical term floating around this is subtractive change, which sounds like a concept wearing a lab coat. But it really means this. People forget that cutting counts, and that is what happens with the shoes. You look at the failed run and assume something is missing. More motivation, more structure, more pain probably. Because the whole improvement industry has a strange little romance with suffering. The plain possibility sits there untouched. Maybe one piece needs to go. The run is not too small. The routine is too fat. You just glanced at the time left in this video, and part of you is already turning this into one more thing to finish. There it is, the reflex has range. The strange thing is that adding feels moral. Removing feels like cheating. If you say the run will be shorter, some tiny committee in your head bangs the table. If you skip the extra loop, if you loosen the rule, if you decide that the shoes only have to make it outside the door for 10 minutes, it feels as if you have lowered yourself as a person, which is a lot to ask from footwear. But the cost of the extra piece is never just the extra piece. The longer route means the shoes stay untouched because now the run has to be a proper run. The strict time means the moment passes and the whole evening is declared ruined, like a small monarchy has fallen. The perfect version means the dirty souls never get dirtier, which is, tragically, the one job they had. Actual things disappear. The quiet walk back home never happens. The sleep that would have come easier does not come. The person waiting to speak to you gets the present body and the absent face. Because your mind is still negotiating with the shoes in the hallway. Very noble, very stupid. This is the part where a normal advice video tells you to increase your discipline, preferably with a graphic of a sunrise, and music that sounds like a bank advert found religion. Fine, discipline has its uses, but discipline is not magic glue. If the thing is badly built, trying harder just holds the broken pieces together with your forehead. Baylock and Carr at Michigan State University showed something sharper in the Journal of Experimental Psychology in 2001. Skilled golfers sank putts on autopilot until pressure made them watch their own hands. The second they started managing what they already knew, it fell apart. Trying harder broke what was working. Different shoes, same little disaster. There is a point where you stop doing the run and start supervising the run. You monitor the pace, you inspect your breathing, you correct how your foot lands. You decide the laces feel wrong and retie them twice, because apparently the future of your health depends on a knot behaving like a signed treaty. The body knew enough to move. Then the manager arrived. And the manager's terrible at running. This is one of those ideas that sounds too simple, so we immediately ruin it by decorating it. But a lot of improvement is not adding pressure to the weak part. It is taking pressure off the part that already works. Put the running shoes on and remove one rule before the door closes. That is the whole sentence. It does not need a framework. I know, tragic for the framework community. Last winter, I added an extra rule to my own run before I had even done the small one. No run counted unless it was the full route. And I spent 3 evenings stepping around my shoes like they were a sleeping animal I did not want to wake. That was the whole achievement. Careful avoidance with laces. Move on. Because the most embarrassing version of this is not when you do nothing. It is when you do a lot and still get nowhere. You research the better version. You tighten the plan. You think about the shoes more than a person who actually runs thinks about shoes. By the time you finally start, Half your effort has already been spent paying rent to a plan that never helped. Laziness was a convenient suspect. Half the effort was going nowhere, and you could not see which half. That line is unpleasant because it removes the drama. If the problem is laziness, at least you get a villain, a weak character, a moral fight, very cinematic. If the problem is wasted effort, then the whole thing becomes quieter and more irritating. You have been pushing, just not against the door that opens. And the day loves this. The day runs smoothly, eats itself, hands you the evening in crumbs, and then asks you to make a good decision while holding a plate, a thought, a half-finished sentence, and a pair of shoes by the door that now represent your entire identity for some reason. No wonder more feels safer. More gives the feeling of motion without forcing the cut. Cutting is rude. Cutting says the beautiful plan was mostly furniture. Cutting says the heroic long route was a disguise for not starting. Cutting says the rule you felt proud of was only another way for the shoes to stay clean. You are doing it right now in miniature. A part of you is filing this away as something to remember later, which is the mind's most polite way of not changing anything today. The trouble is that the real bill never shows itself at the start. The plan looks cheap when you make it. The run looks like it will take the time printed in your imagination, which is a famously corrupt little document. Bueller and Ross at the University of Waterloo found in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 1994 that students said their theses would take almost 34 days. They took almost 56, about 64% over, and they said this while knowing every past project ran late. That study is about students and theses, so let's not pretend it is secretly about shoes. But the accounting error is familiar. The person planning the evening sees only the run. The person living the evening pays for the finding of socks, the hesitation, the lace that needs retying, the mental appeal hearing, the small resentment, the restart, the fact that a body is not a calendar block with knees. Almost 56 when the mind promised almost 34. That gap is where your own time goes, not in one dramatic failure, in tiny unpaid fees. The route you made longer, the rule you made stricter, the standard you made noble, the 5-minute preparation that somehow breeds another 5 minutes, then another. Then the shoes are still by the door, and the evening has been quietly repossessed. Again, the relief, if there is any, is not that you need to become a sharper, cleaner, more optimized creature. Please do not. The world has enough people turning themselves into dashboards. The relief is that some of the weight was never proof of seriousness. It was just extra weight. It was attached to the thing and then mistaken for the thing. There is a nasty freedom in that, because cutting does not feel like progress while you do it. It feels like lowering the bar. It feels like giving up on the impressive version. But the impressive version is often the dead version. The version that happens is usually smaller, plainer, less flattering to describe. No big speech, no new identity. The shoes go on, one rule comes off, and the evening has one less trap in it. Not a transformation, a removal. And once you see this, it becomes harder to admire your own effort just because it is exhausting. Exhaustion is not evidence. A complicated plan is not evidence. Thinking about the shoes all evening is not evidence. The only evidence is whether the thing moves from waiting to done. This is where the advice machine starts smiling and offers you a clean little method with a name. It can keep it. Names are cheap. Cuts are expensive because they hurt the version of you that wanted to be impressive. But the shoes do not care about impressive. They care about contact, floor, door, ground. That is the whole sacred system, apparently. A bit underwhelming. Most true things are. So the next time the day has been swallowed and the shoes are sitting there, do not ask what else you need to add. That question has been fed enough. Look at the plan and find the piece that keeps surviving every failure, because that is usually the guilty one. The longer route, the perfect time, the rule that makes you feel serious, the little extra condition standing between you and the first step. Cut that. The shoes were ready before the plan got involved.